I'm Olivia. This is AV Club, where I talk about horror, literary fiction, speculative fiction, sci fi, weird books, anything I want to talk about. And these are all of the worst books that I read in May. It is so chilly here. This is only my second winter in Australia, and I was thinking maybe I was being like overly dramatic last year whenever I was talking about how cold it was in the house. And no, if anything, I was being under dramatic. It is so cold, and it makes me want to do nothing except for stay in the one room where we have a blow heater and try to preserve any body heat I have. I feel like I'm in the thing. Like it's a whole mess. But before it was freezing and raining all day every day, in May I had a great streak of going on long walks and like basically listening to a whole audiobook during that walk. I had started filming like a little mini vlog series just about like how much I could read by going on these long walks and like all the birds that I could see. However, it did start raining midway through that week. And then I was like, is this even an idea? And I was like, you know what? It's okay. I can put in some of that footage here, but it wasn't anything that like I was able to complete, so I just let it go by. But I did pick up the pace reading in May. I had had a couple of months where I'd read less, but I think I finished 12, 13 books this month, something like that. And so I want to rank them here for you and tell you a little bit about them. So starting with my least favorite, um, I didn't even put a rating on this because I should have known that I was not going to like it, and that was Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood. And this is, I think I am just not a smutty romance girly. Why this even came into my to be read this month was that I had listened to so many horror novellas on Everend that they were like, okay, you can't listen to any more of these. We're only going to show you stuff that you don't really want to read. You know how it is if you have Everand. It's basically a way of like soft blocking you out of listening to anything, something to do with licensing or whatever, that you can only listen to so much in like a certain genre or from a certain publisher, something like that. And so that's what happened here. Two Can Play is a romance by Ali Hazelwood. I haven't read anything by her before. I know that she's very popular for writing, I guess, like Raylo fan fiction rebranded to be not Star Wars copyright. I think it's like her primary claim to fame. Lots of like girls in STEM romances, including this one, which is about video game developers from rival video game companies that they're indie game developers, and they get the opportunity to go in together on a deal to make a game for a book series that's very beloved by our main character, and also beloved by the haughty rival video game developer who she believes hates her, and he believes that she hates him. It's a whole thing. But the company decides that they should go to like a ski lodge and see if they can get together, and if the teams from these rival companies can mesh in order to make this game. I thought it might be cute. I thought it might be like a rom-com. I'm interested in reading books about video games, and I don't really see romances about them. I will say that I'm probably more critical than the average reader about video games. Like, the opinions about games that were held by the characters in this book were so Reddit brained about like Dark Souls supremacy and stuff like that. So I know I wouldn't really like these people in real life, and that's okay. But I thought it was a rom com. It ended up being smutty in a way that I don't think this does anything for me. I don't find it sexy at all. It's like very clinical, and I was listening to it on audiobook and I was just like cringing. Thankfully this was like a very short book. I thought that it could have been like a really cute rom-com. Like, I kind of liked the dynamic between the characters, but it was just like so short, and apparently is just like the plot of one of her other books. But this was like a, I think it was like a Spotify original, but whatever, it was on Everend. So she just kind of like changed some details so that it could be like published as something new and shorter. And so it just didn't really, it wasn't fulfilling on the romance front. And I love a sexy book. I do love a sexy book. There was nothing that is sexy about how um, the encounters were described in this book. Clearly, it works for many other people because smut is like, the biggest moneymaker online. But um, no, I found it very cringy. It was, I felt like I should not be listening to it. I was not scandalized. I just felt like I was at a doctor's appointment. Anyway, I didn't rate it because I don't think it's for me. I wouldn't even know how to rate it. In terms of my enjoyment, it was probably like a 2-star read. But do I think it is a 2-star for its genre? Probably not. I think it's probably, pretty strong in its genre. The next book, another video game book that was like so disappointing, and that is Polybius by Collin Armstrong. I have been looking forward to this book for a long time because our No Cartridge GG No Reread pick for like last spooky season Halloween time was a different Polybius book that was not good. It was playing like a completion run of fitting every slur that it could in the book. It was a book that I had chosen without there being that many reviews about it because I felt so optimistic, because I love the creepypasta about Polybius and all of the urban legends about haunted video games. That one was not good. And then I saw that there was one coming out that was like being put forth by a major publisher, and the cover is like so vibey to me. Such high hopes that it'd be really 80s video games, like arcade, really about video games. And it was just not. I follow the author on social media, and like this guy loves games. Like I love his opinions. So I don't know what happened here, but this book was not even really about video games. Like it was that there was this Polybius arcade machine that was poisoning the city and with a rage mind virus. So everyone who played this would get this kind of rage virus and do acts of violence, which was the exact same plot of the previous Polybius book that I read. And like it is an urban legend. There is like, some like 80s Russian conspiracy stuff to the original urban legends, but I just felt like it could have gone in such a more creative way. And there was like none of the act of playing video games in the book. And like it just like was something that happened and the people like forgot about playing it. So like you don't even really get the experience of playing this game or any kind of imagination as to like what the game actually is. And it's really just about this like conspiracy behind this company. And the whole book, like I cannot believe how long this book was. It was just the characters kind of like going to different locations, hearing that violence was happening somewhere, going there, going to the next place. And it was just like, I felt like nothing was actually progressing or happening. It was just more and more the same. It felt very repetitive. I am so disappointed because I really wanted to love this book. I really thought I was going to. I would love to read a great video game horror and be able to praise it from the mountaintops. Like this is not even me being like overly critical as like a gamer. It just like I don't think it would appeal to the average reader, and definitely not the person who is like passionate about video games and really wants that. And there's just so many different ways that this could go. And honestly, it is what made me start writing a book. Like, I have started writing a book because I'm like, I want there to be a video game horror that actually delivers and feels like playing a video game and is like for that audience. Like, I just think that it should be there. And so I was like, you know what? If no one has done it yet, then let me do it, because I have not read a good video game horror yet, and that's the truth. Like I I pick them up as soon as I hear about them, and none have been good yet. So we still have a lot more books that I didn't like to go. I'm so sad to say. Um or just like disappointing reads. Like I feel like I've been so positive lately. So maybe this is what I needed, is like I finally read a lot in a month and then I did not like a lot of them. The next one being 0 Days by Ruth Ware, which is a thriller about a pen tester, a penetration specialist. So Jack and her husband Gabe are hired to break into buildings and hack security systems. Jack does the actual breaking into buildings parts, like figuring out any kind of like physical security issues with getting into a company, and then her husband Gabe does any of the like technological hacking components to it. It starts off with a bang. Like, you are in the midst of Jack and Gabe like doing this assignment where Jack is like breaking into this company, and they don't tell anyone that they're when they're doing it, because that would defeat the purpose of seeing how secure the business is. And so she really is like trying to elude security guards and stuff like that, because then after the fact they like write this report up about how they were able to, get away with doing whatever. But this assignment goes wrong. She does get caught. And then whenever she finally gets home, she finds her husband brutally murdered. And so like that is a great start to the book. And then I feel like I don't even really want to talk about anything else. It's mostly like a on the run kind of book. Like it's literally like she's just on the run the whole time because she is being framed for her husband's murder, and she's trying to figure out why her husband may have been killed, who did it, and she feels like she cannot interact with the police because her abusive ex boyfriend is like a police chief in wherever she's living. So like it does move along like at a pretty good clip because she's just on the run the whole time. It's like a very much like more of an action thriller, but like the whole plot is like I was about 15 pages into the book, maybe 20 pages into the book, and Daniel, my partner, sees me reading it, and I tell him like briefly, like, it's about penetration testers because he is a computer guy, and so he knows all of this. And he was like, "Oh, 0 days, like," and then he explains to me like what 0 day exploits are, and from that point that he explained it, 15 to 20 pages in, I was able to guess the rest of the book. And so I feel like that is interesting. Like it just feels like if you're able to guess what the thing is just by knowing that what the title of the book means, like maybe not so thrilling. So, I mean, it did give me what I came to it for. Like, I did not think that this was going to be a 5-star read. I always hope that a book is going to be really good, but I don't think any Ruth Ware books have really blown me away, but they've all been pretty good palate cleansers. And I was coming off of, some more serious reads, and I wanted this to get me out of a slump, and kind of get me back in just to the action of reading. And so it did accomplish that, but not the best thriller ever. But if you're ever like, in an airport and you see it and you're like, I need something to turn my brain off for a couple hours, there's probably worse thrillers that that you could read than this one. My next one to talk about, I really don't have that much to say about. It was also disappointing because I've liked this author before, but Cranberry Cove by Hailey Piper was allegedly about a haunted hotel, and bad stuff happening to men who came into this hotel. I love the idea of a haunted hotel. I really had high hopes. However, it was much, much, much about just kind of the relationship of this. I don't think they were technically police, but this like squad of detectives, and it felt very copy. I don't think Hailey Piper is a copy kind of person, but just like the banter, it just wasn't my vibe. And I didn't feel like the hotel was very spooky. It felt very grounded. So like whenever I'm reading a spooky book, I kind of wanted to enter the sensual world in a way, and this felt um very tactile, very copy, less so. Maybe they were going for an X-Files vibe, but it just didn't hit. But I will continue to read Hailey Piper in the future. I don't It's nothing against her, it just wasn't a book that was to my taste. The next book also didn't love, kind of mid for me, very mid, but it's much beloved by a lot of people, and that's A Language of Limbs by Dylin Hardcastle. And I read this as part of the Stella. It was on the Stella Prize long list. I think it might have been on the short list as well. But this also is getting printed in the US. Like it has gotten US release as well. So I think that people will be reading it. Blurbed as an instant queer classic. I don't know about that. I I really liked parts of this book. It's told in an interesting way where there are two perspectives, Limb 1 and Limb 2, and it's both of these female perspectives growing up in the early 70s in Australia, and it's about these two queer women who just go on very different journeys through life. I will say that I found it very confusing. Um, I don't feel like I'm a very unintelligent reader, but the way that these two stories were told is like no one has names from the beginning. And it's like it starts off with like a girl being found with her girlfriend, and then they're separated. And then it goes to a second female perspective time point of view. And like I kind of assumed it was the girlfriend who got separated because there's also something weird that had happened between her and a girl. And so I was like trying to reconcile these two viewpoints for like a long time. And then I just like I couldn't grasp what exactly was going on. Like the two point of views were not different enough. Were not different enough or distinct enough for me to for it to be very clear from the beginning, to be very legible. Um who was who, and they live such very different lives, where one of these girls is kicked out of her house and is picked up by a closeted gay trucker, who takes her to Sydney and introduces her to this kind of underground queer family that kind of lived together in a share house. Very interesting timeline. That was like my favorite parts of the book, where she's meeting all of these queer people at a time where it was very not accepted to be queer in Australia. And it's talking about like interactions with the police, the first Mardi Gras in Sydney. So like there's just some really interesting history in here, and I do think that the author tries to take care of that history, and it's not exploitative in any way. However, it feels almost detached because of how carefully it's like treading with some stuff, where it doesn't feel real. And then the other timeline is a girl who, after she has like this romantic feeling with a girl spurned, um someone who she clearly did have kind of an attachment to, but then the girl was like, no, like it's not like that, kind of detaching herself from that situation. She just is closeted for most of her life. And then there's the backdrop of the AIDS crisis happening as well. So there's lots of death and really heavy emotions in this book. Lots, some very tragic stuff happens. However, like I don't it only affected me in the sense that I'm like, okay, this is referring to a real history and real feelings, and making me feel emotion on behalf of that history rather than like the characters in the book. And then, yeah, so it's those timelines and how they have like near misses throughout time about like actually meeting each other. Um, an interesting book. Like, I do think that it tried to do something new. Um, it took me a long time to get through, and I don't know. I just felt like it didn't really pay off in the end, or it was letting the history do a lot of the heavy work of the emotion building of the story, which is understandable, but I just wish the characterization had been a little bit more rich for me. A book that I had originally received as an ARC from NetGalley, Wrecked by Alex Gonzalez. This is a very interesting book, and it's like I maybe actually liked the act of reading it less than A Language of Limbs. However, it was so creative and took on some new topics in horror that I haven't really read yet, especially with the dark web and red rooms on the dark web, where snuff film adjacent. It also deals with themes like masculinity, online masculinity, incel adjacent. I think some things that people really don't want to be talking about, especially from this point of view that's almost like a sadistic point of view. So our main character in Wrecked, his life changes after his kind of high school sweetheart, the love of his life, is killed in a car accident. He spirals and he's starting to spend all of his time online just watching horrible things like live leaks kind of things. I never got into watching that. I never liked it, but it's like, we started with Two Girls, One Cup, and everything just went down, down, down after that about just horrible ways to watch people die online. That's what I remember, like the early days of Reddit being like. It's just like getting linked to like, you know, chainsaw deaths, all kinds of stuff. And that's what this guy gets into just because he feels so horrible inside. And that is the only way he's getting any kind of, not even peace, but that's just how he is trying to cope with the death of his girlfriend. And then one day he's sent a link to this website that's like different ways to watch people die. It's all about this social marketplace where there's, you'll find a person and then you'll find 20 videos attached to it of different ways that they've died. And then if one of those ends up being the way that they actually died, it'll get like a gold ring circle. And so it's kind of hard to explain, but it's almost like these like AI generations of how different people die. And then there's like people behind it that want to make sure that people die in a certain way because they're also like betting on it. So there's like this really interesting concept. However, it starts off really good, it ends really good. There is a section in the middle of this, like the whole middle third is a slog. The pacing just like cuts off, and it was just hard to push through. And I know it wasn't just me, like all of the reviews are like, what happened in the middle of this book? The pacing is hard to read. However, I think that the themes are so strong. Like there's something really, really interesting to this. And I do think it's like worth pushing through. Like I'm still thinking about it for sure. I don't think it was a perfect book by any means. I will definitely be reading more stuff by Alex Gonzalez in the future. I think this is his debut. But really interesting ideas, and I think it was like a really brave choice to make the main character so unlikable. Like you really don't want to root for a character who's like watching all these horrible things happen to people online, even though it is his way of managing his grief. The last section of this is so interesting. It's like very experimentally done and is like all these like different like blog articles, forum posts, almost like a mixed media style. Gave it a really weird feeling to finish it. There's, I think, you know, still some stuff up in the air about what actually occurred, but yeah, very interesting book. But because of the pacing issues, like I put this down for a long time in the middle of it where the arc expired and I had to, you know, get it again after it actually came out. So that's kind of how that went. And then the last book that I'm talking about in this video is The Haunting of Gillespie House by Darcy Coates. This is a Darcy Coates novella. I was expecting this to be kind of a mid cozy haunted house story, and that's what I got. I do think that although very forgettable, there was like some interesting things that are cultist related in this, that I do see her writing about some new topics. And I'm actually reading a Darcy Coates arc right now, called How Bad Things Can Get, that, oh my gosh, like spoilers for how I feel about this, but it's like leagues beyond anything else that I've read by her in terms of like time spent with different types of characters, the world building. So like I know she has it in her, and I will continue to read her work. And this book gave me what I came to it for. Like it was a very spooky house. There were spooky things happening. How she writes spooky things happening in the house is very effective. It's just like the characterization, it just doesn't feel like a priority in the books that I've read by her until this current one. And also like another thing that has like previously bugged me that's like changed so much with like the arc that I've been reading is that they feel so out of time or place, which I think does give them kind of like that cozy feeling, is that it feels so disconnected from the real world that you cannot even like imagine where these places actually are or the types of people that are actually living there, that they just feel like kind of like Truman Show experiments that are going on. But a book like that is just never going to measure up to like a book that has like really rich characterization for me. So I'm like curious, like are more of her recent releases as rich with characterization as How Bad Things Can Get, or is it that her, because otherwise I've only read like her haunted house stories, like I've read the Carol Haunt and I don't remember all of it. They all have kind of like interchangeable names as well. But I know she has some others that aren't set in a haunted house, which are always just like following like one girl by herself in this place for whatever reason. Um, in the Haunting of Gillespie house, it's because she's like house sitting for someone in this in this haunted house. So yeah, there's really not too much to say about it because it was just a solid spooky listen while I was on a walk. But yeah, I don't really remember anything about it now. Obviously, I've ranked it higher than things that I had strong feelings about. Um, so yeah, just solid but forgettable overall, like mid. But now I'm massively more looking forward to reading more of her work because this arc is so, so good. I'll definitely be doing a complete review on that one because wow. So, anyway, that was all my worst books of May. Please tell me what your very worst book of May was. I love the gossip. I love to know the truth. It kind of feels refreshing in a way for me to have so many books that I didn't like to talk about. And not that I didn't like all of these, they just were my worst books of the month. The chips have to fall somewhere. But yeah, I will be back with you soon to talk about my best books of May. Talk to you later. Bye.